First win of the day right there.
All right, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the November 9th emergency meeting of the Board of Education of Lincoln Way Community High School District 210 to order. Meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So do we have Ms. Davis calling the roll, or Ms. Stone? Mrs. Stone, okay.
I'll do it tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Look at the smile on that face.
Dr. Berthold? Here. Mrs. Johnson? Here. Mr. Kostick?
Here.
Mr. Lucine?
Here.
Mrs. Olenek? Mrs. Stokes? Here. Mr. Janik?
Here. We have no public comment this evening, so we'll move right into the action items. We have the use of Lincoln Way North High School on the agenda. I think most people watching or in the audience probably know what this is all about, but I'll maybe kick it over to Dr. Tingley for some more information.
Sure. We'll provide a little background this evening. Included in the intergovernmental lease is some background. November 2nd, 2023, a ceiling of a classroom in Lockport Central Campus collapsed. They determined they will not be able to be in-person learning for quite some time. They looked at several options, including splitting a school day where they currently were, using other large facilities around the Lockport area, or Dr. Bob McBride and myself had some conversations about the potential use at Lincoln Way North. Now, since 2016, 17, when the building was closed, we maintained the building. I've provided different reports back to the board. We would clean it regularly. We have a maintenance person there regularly. We keep security. We've maintained the building. I've always said if we needed to utilize it, we would be able to within 3 weeks. Didn't think we could do it in a week, but 3 weeks. And so over that time, you know, we've looked at different options for uses of the building. Obviously, we've talked about the state police. We've talked about the village of Tinley. There's been some other possibilities. Rich Township took several tours with community members and board members prior to them renovating their current schools. So we've had other suitors, so to speak, but never something like this that would be a short-term use that would be immediate. So in the discussions, Bob and I talked on Friday. Last Friday, I notified the board last Friday of the possibility. They walked through the building Monday morning. I've been in close contact a couple times a day, I would say, with the board president, Mr. Janik, as we've worked through this process. And we're to the point where we could be ready for them to have students in the building on Wednesday. We could turn the building over to them on Monday. Our two biggest challenges have been just to get the building up and ready and technology. Cheryl Kay has worked with their technology director to install switches and access points. Even Plainfield High School stepped up late last night and provided Aruba software, technology pieces, whatever they call it. Cheryl will correct me whatever I say, but anyway, pieces of Aruba software that we would need, or hardware I would say that we would need. So we're at a point now where I would like to ask the board to entertain the intergovernmental lease agreement. And the way this would work is Lockport would pay for the upfront cleaning cost. That would be incorporated and split over a 3-month period. Lockport would then pay all utilities, just like if you moved into an apartment or were renting a house. Then they would also pay a 15.5%, I guess, for lack of a better term, administrative charge. Mike, if you want to go ahead and speak to that and how we came up with that number.
Sure. So trying to be as fair as possible, come up with a number that's mutually agreeable. The 15.5% that Dr. Tingley is referring to is the unrestricted indirect cost rate of our most recent AFR from fiscal year 23, and that's what will come in when the auditors present our FY23 audit at next week's regularly scheduled board meeting. And so that indirect cost rate is a percentage that's used very often when you're trying to come up with costs that are difficult. You know, you have your direct costs, you have the utilities, you have the literal invoices that are more direct, but there's always those ancillary pieces. And so To keep it straightforward, we've worked, Dr. Tingley and myself, with Dr. McBride and Stephanie Croy, their business manager, to come up with the utilities as well as that upfront cleaning, just to get the building ready, and then apply that indirect cost rate. That's where that 15.5 comes from.
And so included in this is $250,000 a month, which would be pretty close to each month, a third of the cleaning prior to use, plus all the utilities, plus that 15%, and that's something we will look at monthly as we work through this agreement. We've agreed to 3 months up front because that makes the most sense for us to capture any associated cost on our behalf. We will then analyze those 3 months if they're going to be there longer. There's certainly the possibility that they could be there past February, and if that's the case, then we would bring it back to the board to extend this agreement. But their attorneys and our attorneys have both gone through this a couple different times. Mike and I have gone through it several times. I sent it to Mr. Janik earlier today, and then I think the board had it at about 4 o'clock once we were able to get everything kind of in place. I'd be happy to answer any questions that might pertain to the lease agreement or just general questions that you would have. Yes.
There we go, okay. So the $250,000 per month for each month, and you said February, so it says November, December, and January, so if they're gonna be there past January,
Correct.
okay? And then you base that on, I'm sure you guys already have in mind what the utility cost is, because if it goes over that amount, so you already know what that threshold is to determine when you do the reconciliation?
Yes. So we're using West as an estimate. So if we're using last year's billables at West, it's pretty much right on. And the gas rate and electricity, year over year, have been pretty close. West has 2,000 kids. They will have 1,000 in the building, so we feel that's a pretty good comparison.
Have they given any kind of, it's just happened a couple weeks ago, do they have any kind of an idea yet how long they're gonna need to be there, or?
They're fairly certain they will be there for the 2 to 3 month period. And then when in discussions, they would look for a clean break to be able to move back. So whether that means a Christmas break, spring break, it all depends upon their availability of the building. They still don't know when they'll be able to move back in.
And either way, there's a reconciliation clause, good or bad, if they go over
Correct.
any of these
Yes.
costs, so.
For the benefit of those maybe in the audience or watching at home, what are they gonna have access to?
That's a good question, Aaron. So they will be utilizing from north to south, they'll be utilizing the auditorium, the stage for their music classes. They will utilize the art classrooms. They will utilize then the north and south lower level academic wings, the science labs upstairs, and then one of the outside wings of the academic, front office space, library. They will not have access to the hallway that is athletics and our shop classes, our woods classes, and they will not have access to the wrestling gym, the dance studio, field house, fitness center, or weight room. Frankfurt Square Park District will continue to operate their programs during this time. We're able to section off the building. We've spoken with Lockport. They'll have one of their assistant deans down there the first week to make sure their kids understand this is as far as you go, but we'll be able to block part of that building off. They will also then have access to the gymnasium and both locker rooms where they will have their PE classes. So it's Chuck, would you say 70% of the building probably utilization? And so that's what's in Exhibit A that is drawn out. That's a good question. Yes, Deidre?
And so after-school or extracurriculars won't take place here?
Correct. So the way their busing works, this actually framework helped them with the ability to do this. When they run a bus route, they pick up all students, freshmen through seniors. They stop and drop them off at the freshman center, and then the bus continues to travel to their East Campus. Same thing going home. They would get on at the East Campus, pick up the freshman students, bring them all home. So now what they'll do is they'll get all their students, bring them to the East Campus. Sophomores, juniors, and seniors will stay. All the freshmen then will combine to 20 or 22 buses. They'll come over. They'll finish, so they'll start the day a little later. They'll finish the day earlier, bus those students back to the East Campus. They'll get on their normal routes, and then it will take them home. So those students then, the basketball players, the wrestlers, they'll go back to the East Campus and do their extracurriculars there. It's a good question.
They said Tuesday night it was approximately 45 classrooms, 900 students, right? Approximately?
Correct.
Okay.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. And I think we're probably right around 48 to 50 classrooms that we were gonna have ready, but they were thinking 40 to 45 classrooms.
Resource-wise, we're okay with desks?
They're gonna bring in their own
Oh.
materials. We have a couple classrooms of desks, but it's much cleaner for them to bring in their own things, and then when they go, they're going to go. We do have some teacher desks that we're providing, we have some lab stools that we're providing, and a couple classrooms, but primarily they're going to rent, at least their plan was to rent tables and chairs.
And then projector-wise, I know you said.
Projector-wise, we actually, this kind of worked out. We had 50 ready to go that we were going to recycle, and we get money for those. So we had those ready to go, so we're bringing those over. We have several carts. My predecessor was big on the overhead carts. So we have several carts where we're able to run extension cords and do that. Will County Regional Office of Education will be meeting us tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock to conduct their walkthrough. They were through just this past April. So all of our fire extinguishers are up to code. We've continued with the annual cycle of having Will County out to provide us with the life safety updates. But obviously, this will be a little different as the building's back open again. So they'll be there at 8 o'clock tomorrow. Frankfurt Fire will be there at 8 o'clock on Monday morning.
Is their alt-ed program also gonna be housed? Because I think it is at.
There's a couple different programs, and they have not finalized which ones, if any, they would bring over, because they were housed in smaller places. So I can't confirm that.
So so the transportation of the freshmen will all be via bus. Will parents be able to drop off? And if so, are we coordinating that with like local police or what have you?
So the Village of Tinley is aware, and so I talked to Pat Carr earlier this week to give him the heads up, and then once it would happen, I would let them know as well. It is likely then they'll help coordinate that light as they did when we were operating.
And they'll have full staff there, SROs.
Correct. So
Principals,
the SRO has to have an agreement with Will County, and I know they were already in the works for that because they use Lockport Police. And so they do have an officer assigned who will be there, yes.
Food service is limited, they were talking about, right? Like, because we don't have all the facility ability, right, to do full food service?
We do not, and they don't do that anyway, so they
Okay.
use a service anyway.
Okay.
So they use Quest,
And they're
so,
providing all
so
that. Okay.
they'll bring the lunches and they'll facilitate from there, yes.
No issues with the insurance carriers on this one? Our insurance carriers, I should
We
say?
have the same one, so.
Yeah. Oh. So if there's a dispute, they can fight themselves. Okay.
Yeah, so we're both part of CLIC, which is a major cooperative.
Okay.
And, that's, we're both on the same page there.
Is there any anticipated need for support from District 210 to help make this be successful? Like, do we have to anticipate any, I know technology's been working
Yes.
overtime to try and get this under control and kind of manage it, and I know they may not know where all the things are, so.
That's a really good question. So we're to the point where most of our work is going to be done at the end of this week. We would not want to, as you know, we're not heavily staffed to start with, so I wouldn't be able to provide 2 techs. Our maintenance guys, when they're there, we will have a maintenance person there. And we do have the availability to do that as we have a rotation at Lincoln Way North anyway. But But yeah, once they're up and running, it's certainly our anticipation that all of our people then will be back business as usual. And we think we're to a really good place after just helping out this week.
Any further questions for Dr. Tingley?
No, I just think it's a really great opportunity to help and make sure that the kids have less disruption, and I think it's just a good solution for a kind of a terrible situation that nobody can predict.
No, I do too. I do think it's a win-win for our district, to be quite honest with you. We're at a position where it was good for us to get the deep clean in the building and run all of our mechanicals. It just was. We've been running them, but we haven't had an opportunity to bring 900 people in, right? And as I said, as Mr. Janik and the board knows, a week ago Friday, we had brought up a private company through to take a look. And it certainly is going to look different on Monday, Tuesday than it did 2 weeks ago. It was in good shape, but now, you know, it's going to be used for its intended use, and I'm happy to see that, and I'm happy to help our neighbors. You know, I certainly, many of you know, it hurts every time I walk through there. I understand that. Everybody understands that. If we had 8,000 students, we would be operating there right now. But it's good to be able to help our neighbors in this.
Anything else from anybody? All right, if there's no further questions or discussions, we would need a motion to approve the intergovernmental agreement
As presented.
as presented. Do I have a second? All right, we have a motion and a second. We will go ahead and call the vote.
The vote is open. May I just call yours, Dr. Berthold? Yes?
Absolutely.
The vote is unanimous. The motion passes.
All right. So we will go ahead and execute that and work with Lockport. So good job, everyone. Thank you to Chuck and Cheryl, Dr. Tingley, everyone involved. I know nobody really was planning to go through this, but it was accomplished pretty quickly and pretty smoothly. So we have no items for closed session. So with that, we will adjourn the meeting. Our next meeting will be next Thursday, regular. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Sorry. Thanks, Joe. Do I have a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, now we are adjourned. And our next meeting is next Thursday, our regular meeting. Thanks, everyone.